Spellbreak didn't just die, it was murdered. Sorry, I just couldn't resist. In all seriousness though, the game is actually going through a serious rough patch that I'm not sure it's going to be able to crawl out of. And it sucks because I really enjoy this game and would love to see it succeed. But without a miracle, I don't really see this game lasting more than a couple months. Make no mistake, this game is bleeding players right now, and it's not doing a good job at gaining new ones to make up for the lost ones. Even without having access to any official numbers, everyone can see the state this game is in. It seems like every day there's a new post on Reddit about how dead the game is, or how hard it is to fill lobbies now, or how people are getting killed by the exact same players every game. And all of these problems are going to be even worse on Switch and PC because of how crossplay works. I mean, I play this game on Xbox, and matchmaking times for the BR modes are getting horribly slow and seem to just be getting slower every day. With that being said, I want to talk about why I think this game is having these problems. And I think the first place to start has to be the lack of content. Now, the first time I played this game was about a year ago during one of the closed betas, and I absolutely loved the game. But after playing the beta for around 2 months, I started to burn out on the game because there wasn't a whole lot to do. So I decided to put the game down until it officially released, because by then, hopefully, there'd be a lot of changes and some new content to try out. Fast forward to the official launch of the game, and I was kind of shocked to find that the game was roughly in the exact same state that I left it in almost a year ago. Aside from some UI changes and a short tutorial, there wasn't really anything added to the game, and in fact, there was things removed, which included solos, duos, clash, shadow step, and chronomaster. Now, to be fair, they did slowly add all of this stuff back into the game, and I kind of understand the reasoning for removing them initially. But the problem is, for the most part, these were the updates. So for most of us that already played the game before it launched, these updates were pretty lackluster, and they didn't seem to do much to bring in new players either. Even when we finally got some brand new content recently, it was a bit of a mixed bag because the chapter system left people really wanting more. The game lacks a good progression system, and the chapters really didn't do much to change that, especially since a lot of people were expecting something more than just a standard battle pass. And even worse, what we got was too short for the people who regularly play this game. And between the chapters and the class leveling system, neither really feel as rewarding as they could be. At this point, there's no way they could even add a ranked mode because the player base just can't support it. It would split everybody off too much, as we've already seen with Clash practically killing off the BR modes. But aside from the content, I do think there's some gameplay issues that could potentially be turning off new players. Now, don't get me wrong, the core gameplay in this game I think is great, and is probably the main reason why most of us are still playing it. But I think there's two key issues here. The first being the map is too big for 42 players. And because of this, there are a lot of times where you're stuck running around the map trying to find people for way longer than you should be. I've had games where even though I was actively seeking fights, I couldn't find more than maybe 2 people before we reached the final 10. And to make matters worse, sometimes the only opponents you find in the early to mid game are bots. Maybe part of this is on me, but I know I'm not the only person to complain about the map size. The other gameplay issue that I think pushes some new players away is that there's no way to revive your teammates after they're dead in this game. I think they really missed the mark here because some sort of respawn system has been implemented into all of the big battle royales at this point. And so it's kind of weird for this to not have one. Even smaller battle royale games like Hyperscape have some way to revive your dead teammates. Being dead and having to watch your teammates play with no hope of ever coming back is probably the worst part of the battle royale experience. So I think this should be a high priority feature to add into this game if they want any chance at saving it, but I haven't heard any mention of it up to this point. maybe the most glaring reason for why this game is dying so fast boils down to the game's new player experience and its relatively high skill gap. The sad part about it is this may be the area that's the hardest for them to fix, partly because it's already too late. One of the complaints I see a lot on Reddit is new players complaining that they're getting utterly dominated by people who've been playing this game for a while, especially the alpha players. And by a while, I mean around 2 years. So obviously, these people had a huge advantage over people just starting out when the game launched. And because of this game's small player base, it's pretty common to run into these people. In addition to running into veterans, the game also has the high skill gap that I mentioned earlier. And while I don't think the game is super complicated, it's definitely easy to notice the differences between a good player and a bad player. Admittedly, when I first started playing this game, I never felt like the new player experience was really that bad. But I think it's safe to say that I'm in the minority considering how often this is brought up on the Reddit. The obvious solution here seems to be to add in skill-based matchmaking. But the issue is, like I said before, I think it's already too late. With the game already struggling to fill lobbies now, there's no way it would last with skill-based matchmaking. At least not under any idea of skill-based matchmaking that I have in my head. For the same reason, adding a ranked mode would also be a bad idea since the game simply can't support it. There are some things they could do to improve the new player experience, like for example, adding in some in-game class guides or some rune tip videos. Even expanding on the practice mode with some AI-controlled training dummies that actually fight back could help. But honestly, I don't know if most of these things would really help considering the big battle royale games rarely have more than a basic tutorial. It's unfortunate, but I feel like games that are perceived as having a high skill gap tend to not do so well, possibly because they're scaring away new players. I mean, the gaming graveyard is filled with games with high skill gaps. Just look at Lawbreakers, most arena shooters, Hyperscape, many fighting games, and to a lesser extent, Titanfall. It sucks because I play a lot of these games, but they always struggle to build up player bases and keep them. So I don't know what's their best path to fixing this problem, but something definitely needs to be done. And maybe the devs will start moving with a bit more urgency, because right now, I'm not seeing it. I hate to keep bringing up Hyperscape, but it's a game in a similar situation, and those devs, I've been seeing them scrambling to try and make changes, sometimes even big changes, to try and salvage their game. And I guess the question is, at what point do we get that from the Spellbreak devs? So I'm sorry for the somewhat negative video, but I really felt these things needed to be said. If you think my opinions are off or I missed some important factor for why this game is dying, let me know in the comments. If you want to see more Spellbreak content, hit that sub button. I'm Doc Caesar, and I hope to see you next time.